You already know what a ruthless person looks like. They smile when they want something from you. They go quiet when you need something back. They call it strategy. They call it ambition. They call it just how the world works. And somewhere along the way, you were taught that the right response was to be patient, to be kind, to trust, to believe that if you simply showed enough good faith, it would eventually be returned. It was not returned. That is the wound you are carrying. Not the betrayal itself, but the fact that you were never taught to see it coming. You were handed a philosophy designed for a world that does not exist and sent out into a world that does. Thomas Hobbes saw through the illusion 400 years ago. He called life, stripped of all pretense, exactly what it is: solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Not because people are evil, but because without the right understanding and the right defenses, the ruthless will always find the unprepared. Tonight, that ends. Tonight, you learn Hobbes' rules for surviving ruthless people and how to use them before they use you.
Thomas Hobbes was not a cynical man. He was a precise one. He lived through a civil war. He watched kings fall and crowds cheer and then tear each other apart over what came next. He watched men who preached loyalty sell their allies for safety. He watched men who promised protection take everything they were meant to guard. What Hobbes understood, what most people still refuse to accept, is that human beings, at their core, are driven by one overriding instinct above all others: self-preservation. Not love, not justice, not loyalty, self-preservation. This is not an insult to humanity. It is the most honest diagnosis ever written about it. And here's what makes it dangerous to ignore. The ruthless person in your life already operates from this understanding. They have, consciously or not, accepted that their survival and advancement come first, always. While you were extending trust, they were extending reach. While you were building bridges, they were mapping exits. Hobbes did not write his masterwork, Leviathan, to depress you. He wrote it to arm you. Because the man who understands the true nature of the arena he is operating in is the man who can survive it. The naive man walks into the room believing it is a dinner party. The Hobbesian man walks into the same room knowing it is a negotiation. One of them goes home with everything he came for. The other goes home wondering what happened. The condition of man is a condition of war of everyone against everyone. You are not living in that war, but the ruthless people around you are, and the first rule of surviving them is accepting that the war is real.
Let me show you how a ruthless person actually thinks. This is not speculation. This is pattern recognition, built from observation, from history, from the documented behavior of those who have weaponized social interaction. A ruthless person does not see relationships the way you do. Where you see connection, they see leverage. Where you see trust, they see exposure. Yours, not theirs. Every vulnerability you reveal to them is filed away. Not always immediately, but it is filed. They are running a long game while you are thinking about this conversation. Here is what happens when you place unguarded trust in a ruthless person. You begin to believe the warmth they offer is real, and some of it may be. Ruthless people are not monsters. They are often charming, generous, even genuinely fond of the people they exploit. But the moment your value to them shifts, the warmth shifts with it. Suddenly you are no longer useful. Suddenly the favors dry up. Suddenly the conversation topics change and the invitations stop, and you are left trying to diagnose what went wrong. Nothing went wrong. The calculation changed. Hobbes understood this calculus. In the natural state, he wrote, every man is enemy to every man, not out of hatred, but out of competition for resources, status, and safety. The ruthless person has simply refused to let civilization fully domesticate that instinct. And here is the most important thing you will hear tonight. You cannot shame a ruthless person out of their nature. You cannot out-kindness them. You cannot negotiate from a position of pure goodwill and expect mercy in return. You can only match their awareness with your own. Awareness, not cruelty. Strategy, not paranoia. That is the distinction.
Now, the rules. Rule 1. Know that everyone is negotiating. The first rule Hobbes hands you is the hardest to accept. Every interaction is a negotiation. Not every negotiation is adversarial. Not every person at the table wants to take from you. But every person at the table has something they want, something they are protecting, and something they are willing to sacrifice to protect it. The ruthless person knows this about themselves and about you. You must know it too. Stop entering conversations as a passenger. Begin entering them as a participant who understands that positions are being taken, value is being assessed, and alliances are being formed in real time. The man who does not know he is negotiating always loses the negotiation. Rule 2. Never reveal the full depth of what you know. Hobbes wrote that in the natural state, knowledge is power, and power freely given is power surrendered. The ruthless person in your life uses your transparency against you. Every time you explain your full reasoning, you give them a map to redirect you. Every time you share your full hand, they play against it. Every time you tell them exactly how far you will go, they know precisely where to push. Strategic restraint is not deception, it is protection. You are not required to be an open book to people who have not earned the right to read you. Let them wonder, let them estimate. An opponent who must guess at your limits is an opponent who cannot fully exploit them.
Rule 3. Understand the currency of leverage before you need it.
Hobbes observed that in any power structure, the person with the most viable alternatives holds the most power. Ruthless people understand this before the relationship even begins. They cultivate options, they build networks, they make themselves difficult to replace. And when the moment of confrontation arrives, they pull the lever of alternatives and watch you scramble. Your defense is not to become ruthless. Your defense is never to become dependent in only one direction. Build your own alternatives in your career, in your relationships, in your financial life. The person who can walk away from a bad situation without catastrophe is the person a ruthless operator cannot fully corner. Never let anyone be your only option. Not a job, not a person, not a partnership. Dependency is the trap a ruthless person waits for you to step into. Rule 4. Control the terms of your agreements. Hobbes believed that without clear, enforced agreements, chaos is the only outcome, not because people are noble, but because ambiguity invites exploitation. The ruthless person profits from ambiguity. A vague promise is a promise they can reinterpret. A handshake deal is a deal they can walk back. An unwritten expectation is an expectation they will claim they never had. Be precise. Define terms early. Put things in writing, not because you distrust everyone, but because clarity is protection for both parties. And the ruthless person who resists clarity is telling you something critical about how they intend to use the fog. Ambiguity is never neutral. It always favors the person willing to exploit it. Rule 5. Exit before you are cornered. Of all Hobbes's observations, none is more useful and more ignored than this. A man who waits until he has no options has already lost. The moment you sense a ruthless person tightening the walls around you, reducing your options, increasing your dependency, isolating you from other sources of support, the window for a clean exit is already closing. Most people wait for absolute certainty before they move. They want proof. They want to be sure. By the time you are sure, you are cornered. Hobbes taught that self-preservation is not a reactive instinct, it is a proactive discipline. You do not preserve yourself by fighting your way out of a trap. You preserve yourself by recognizing the trap before it closes. Weak men wait until they have no choice. Sovereign men choose their exits while exits still exist.
Everything you have learned tonight is simple to understand. None of it is simple to live. Because the hardest part of self-preservation is not knowing the rules, it is resisting the pull of what you want to believe. You want to believe that the person who betrayed you once will not do it again. You want to believe that this time the warmth is real. You want to believe that loyalty is always returned in kind. That pull is not weakness, it is human. But ruthless people count on you following it. The Stoics called the discipline you need apatheia, not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to be governed by it. Hobbes would have called it sovereign reason, the ability to see clearly even when emotion lobbies hard for blindness. Train it through small decisions first. Notice when you overshare because you want approval. Notice when you accept ambiguity because confronting it feels uncomfortable. Notice when you stay past the point where the evidence told you to leave. Each time you catch it and choose differently, the discipline grows stronger. Each time you let the pattern run uninterrupted, the ruthless person in your life gains another inch. The man who knows his own vulnerabilities before his enemies do is the man no enemy can fully use. That is the discipline. Know yourself more completely than anyone trying to exploit you ever could.
You came into this video carrying something you had no language for. The frustration of someone who played by rules that the other person never agreed to follow. The exhaustion of extending good faith into a void and waiting for something to come back. The quiet confusion of a person who was told that decency is armor and discovered it is not. Decency is not armor. Decency is a value. And values without strategy are vulnerabilities. The man who emerges from this understanding does not become ruthless. He becomes precise. He does not abandon trust. He makes trust something that must be earned and demonstrated, not assumed and given freely. He does not stop caring about people. He becomes more selective about which people earn his proximity. He walks differently through rooms full of negotiation because he knows what is happening in them. He no longer mistakes charm for loyalty, or silence for peace, or a lack of conflict for actual safety. He does not chase confrontation. He does not live in suspicion. He simply sees clearly. And clarity, in a world full of ruthless people, is the most powerful form of self-preservation that exists. Hobbes did not write his rules so that you would become the predator. He wrote them so that you would stop being the prey. That is the transformation. Not from good to cold, from naive to sovereign. If this opened something in you, drop the words "I am sovereign" in the comments, not for me, as a declaration to yourself. You have chosen to see clearly. If these words hit differently than anything else you have heard, hit the like button and let the algorithm know there are people who want truth, not comfort. Subscribe and turn on all notifications. We publish lessons in power, philosophy, and self-mastery every week. You will not find this in a classroom, but you will find it here. You are not the prey. Not anymore.